Hey man, this may be the most important video maybe not the most important video I've ever done. One of them. Okay, the Militia, Captain Isaac Davis and the Ideal American Man. I don't know how to make this video sexy. I've been putting it off for a really long time because I want this video to be perfect, and it's not going to be. And I've put it off for probably over a year, trying to get to where I could do Captain Isaac Davis, the perfect, no, not the perfect American man, but the Ideal American Man video correct. And I'm just going to have to do it. A few things. First off, we want to thank Isaac, who is actually a descendant of Captain Isaac Davis, for bringing Captain Davis to our attention. Man, I know my history. I know my American history. I know it well. I have never heard of Captain Isaac Davis prior to Isaac bringing him to my attention. And it was such a mind-blowing failure on my part. How is this guy not taught in all of our curriculum? I have a book that written back probably in the 60s. I had it as a child. It's, a compendium of American folklore, and it's all these stories about, the founding fathers, myths, Davy Crockett, Johnny Appleseed, John Henry, all that stuff. Isaac Davis isn't anywhere in there. And this is a man. This is the man we need. This is the man we should all be emulating. George Washington, great guy. Isaac Davis never owned slaves. He didn't own slaves. So he was from Massachusetts, and so he is largely free of the taint of the original sin of slavery. We don't have to excuse him like we do Jefferson or Washington or Patrick Henry or all those guys. Whoo, this guy's amazing. So I'm going to jump into it as quick as I can. I can't remember if North Point Axe has anything going on right now. All of our videos are sponsored by North Point Axe. Here for a while. Adam's been very kind to us. So once I get you all fired up about Captain Isaac Davis, go check out northpointaxe.com. He is trying to clear out some old stuff so he can get into some new stuff. And like I said, he's one of our own. He was one of us before he ever even started that business. So Captain Isaac Davis and the Ideal American Man. Okay, so 1745 was born into this world. Like a beam of light came down from heaven and went, ah, and Captain Isaac Davis, he wasn't captain at the time, was born. 1745. Maybe sometime in September. September 6th is sticking in my mind, but I may have just made that up. Don't quote me on that one. But it was 1745. So in 1775, we know how old he is, right? He's 30. This is a young man. I'm 46. I just turned 46 this week. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. 30 seems very, very young right now. Very, very young. See, when I was 30, I had 5 children. I now have 15 children. So 30 seems, 10 children ago. That's a very, very long time ago. Very, very young. And the man I was at 30, I'm still not the man Isaac Davis was at 30, but I'm 3 times the man I was at 30. Anyway, 1775, we all know the date. We all think it was about taxation without representation. It was not. Well, it was partially that, but that's a major trivialization of what was going on in the early 1770s when our forefathers rose up and threw off the yoke of oppression. We frequently talk about, they were fighting the king. They weren't fighting the king. Our founding fathers actually were trying to play nice with the king. They were fighting Parliament. Parliament was an elected body. And our founding fathers were fighting Parliament because Parliament wasn't elected by the colonists. Parliament was elected in the United Kingdom, largely England, but partially Scotland. And I can't remember if Ireland had any seats at the time or not. I don't know my English history that well. So we were fighting Parliament is who everyone was mad about, because Parliament was making all these laws that affected the colonies and trying to make their money back, and it wasn't actually unfair. I mean, it was. Anyway, we don't want to get into all that. Very complicated. The mainstream story on the revolution is wildly inaccurate until the king. Anyway, we won't go into that. So 1775. Remember, Massachusetts was a frontier still. The French were to the north, and there had just been the 7 Years' War. We call it the French and Indian War in America, but it in Europe, it was a European-wide war. It was called the 7 Years' War, and the French attacked and the Indians attacked because the Indians were just to the west of all that right now. That was all frontier, the British were allegedly trying to keep the colonists from crossing the Appalachian Mountains, because that was the frontier and that was all Indian territory. You know, French from the north, Spaniards from the south. The Spaniards were in, I know they were in Florida, and I believe they were also in New Orleans at this point. I think the lower Mississippi Valley was all Spanish territory at this point, because I can't remember when it was the French took it from them, but the French took it from them at some point. That hadn't happened yet. And so this whole 7 Year Wars happens in Spain and France. I can't remember all the, but just bullshit, hoo-yah, horseshit. You know, it's a war. It's a battlefield. The Indians attacking from the west, and French from the north, Spaniards from the south. Everyone was on a war footing in this country at this time. And of course, we know the militia concept in Anglo-Saxon culture, because at this point in 1775, they were all Anglo-Saxon and Scottish. And I think most of the Scots would have been Anglo-Scots. I don't think these were necessarily Gaelic Scots quite yet. Same thing with many of the Irish that came over. There's three categories of Irish. Our buddy Half Can Tan is Gaelic Irish. And then the Anglo-Irish, the Anglo-Saxons invaded Ireland, and some of them stayed. And then the Normans came and invaded Ireland, and some of them stayed. So there's the Irish, the Anglo-Irish, and the Norman Irish. And it was much later in the game before the Gaelic Irish actually started coming over. I think that was the potato famine and all that. So this was an Anglo-Saxon culture. Not that no other cultures aren't valid or valuable, or that Anglo-Saxons are any better. It's just these were the Anglo-Saxons. And we know the militia goes back to the very founding of the Anglo-Saxon culture, the Fyrd. When they invaded England, however you think they did it, I personally think it was a large invasion over the course of several hundred years. A steady sort of drip, 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 starting with the barbarian conspiracy against the Romans in I don't remember, all the way up to like the 600s, when they kind of just suddenly realized, oh, we're all Anglo now. So I think it was like a 150, 200 year process, and it was a large scale invasion and replacement just over a long period of time. Whole different controversy. So they had the Fyrd, and they were a militia society. And we talked about this before. If you had a spear, a shield, and a farm, you were the highest rank in society. They were called churls, and it was a very sort of devolved society, where, again, like if you could arm yourself and you had a home, you were this unit, this basic unit of society, and it was pretty much as high as anyone attained. Anyway, so you know, we bring that here to America to a certain extent. The people who come to America from England are certainly those who had still held on to that, because they were the ones who, you know, all of the early comers. This is going to be a long video, I apologize, man, and I haven't even gotten to Isaac Davis yet. Anyway, let's just go to straight militia. It's a militia society. I don't have to explain it to you. You know this. And for no other reason, to all the threats on all sides, and the mother country's way over here, and the mother country's fighting France and the Habsburgs and, you know, all that. They ain't got time for us over here in America. Just, you know, buy our goods. That's kind of what it was. The deal was that we would just buy English goods, and we would only sell our goods to England. Everyone's fine, happy. We're not going to mess with you. 7 Years' War happens. They start messing with us because they need to get their money back, because they just went into major debt. All right, fair enough. That's also when they took Canada, by the way, but only certain sections. I think it was still like Western Canada was still. I don't remember all of it. Like only the eastern part of Canada was English at that point. Anyway, so Isaac Davis is this young 30-year-old man, and 30 years young even for the age, gets elected the captain, because the militias elected their officers, and usually I think there was just like a captain and I don't know. I know there was a captain. This 30-year-old man gets elected to be the captain of the East Acton, Massachusetts. I believe it's East Acton. East Acton, Massachusetts militia company. Now this man, I hate that term, guy. We're not guys, we're not dudes, we're men. This man's man, this pinnacle of American masculinity, that's what we'll call this, the Captain Isaac Davis, the pinnacle, not the ideal, we'll call him the pinnacle of American masculinity. So they elect him. He's a gunsmith and a blacksmith, and this guy knows his stuff. At the time, the militia didn't, they didn't really consider themselves an infantry force. They were, I don't know how to say it. Anyway, this guy decides he wants his militia company to be able to stand up to the British. Remember, they were mostly focused on, because there weren't a whole lot of French to the north. The French focused on using the Indians to attack, and so these guys were focused on Indian fighting. That's what they tried to do, and that's what they were kind of trained for. Captain Isaac Davis knew the signs of the times, though, and he wanted his militia company to be able to fight the British. And so what he does is he makes, now a company is like 120 men today. I'm not positive how many it was back then, but it probably wasn't dissimilar. He makes them all bayonets, and this is unheard of at the time. No militia in the entire, it was very, very, very rare for militia to have bayonets. And at the time, bayonets are incredibly important. The way the British, and the British were the best infantry force of the time, they get outside, they shoulder to shoulder, they march up to within 50 yards, come down, take a shot, fix bayonets, or they've already fixed bayonets, and then charge. I mean, that was warfare. And it was brutal, and it was hideous. And usually the opposing side broke and ran before they got there with the bayonet charge. Because, it takes so long to load and everything, especially the rifles that the Americans tended to use. There's a lot of myth and legend around that, but they were kind of really poorly suited because they gummed up so quick, and you had to stop and clean them after a very, very small number of shots. I don't remember exactly, but I think I've heard as low as, I won't speculate because I'll get it wrong. But it's very, very, very small number of shots before you had to stop and clean those things because black powder is so filthy, and the close tolerances in the barrels of the rifles versus the muskets. And so this guy, not only did he made himself, because he's a blacksmith and a gunsmith, he makes a 30-year-old man with 4 kids, by the way. He's got 4 kids at 30, which is pretty impressive. Even for the time, I don't think that was just every day. I mean, I'm sure. He had 2 sons, 2 daughters. 30-year-old young man. Sure, he's got a young wife. I'm sure there's things she wants done around the house. I'm sure the farm needed tending. The forge needed whatever you pounding. What do you do at a forge, Adam? And this young 30-year-old guy takes the time to make bayonets for however many men. It could be up to 120. A platoon is 30. Anyway, not only that, he makes sure they all have cartridge boxes, because most of the American militia charge their guns from powder horns, and that's just slower than the cartridge box. I don't understand all the process involved there. I think maybe they had, in the cartridge box, you had the powder in paper, and you rip off the paper with your tongue, and you pour it in, and so it's quicker. And so he made sure they all had cartridge boxes, so they would be quicker to reload, and they could, in theory at least, match it was a hardware problem with matching the rate of fire of the British regulars. And then he sets up a range in his backyard, and he focuses like a laser beam in on marksmanship training for his men, and drilling. And he is one of and this is probably the best trained, most capable militia company in the entire 13 colonies at this time. This guy is the creme de la creme. He was an actual Minuteman. Not all militia were Minutemen. Minutemen were the special forces of the militia, and Captain Davis's company was the highest level, those secret black ops, high speed, low drag operators none of us know about. It used to be Delta Company that technically didn't exist. I think now they've admitted Delta Company exists. Whatever that top end guy group is, that's who Captain Davis's company was. Now, I don't have to give you a lot of the history of Concord and Lexington, although I probably do. You probably don't know a lot of it. It's really involved. But the British decide they got to take the guns, they got to take the ammunition. Things have just gotten crazy. Those Massachusetts boys, good, solid, son of the New South here that I am. My wife's from Massachusetts, by the way, too, so I may be feathering my own cap a little bit, or at least softening my own bed. I'll tell you what, those Massachusetts men in the early 1770s, they were something else, man. They were something else. So they're causing all this ruckus, and I think they've shut down Boston at this point. If I can't remember, it's like they've blockaded Boston and they won't let the British out of Boston. And so the British decide that they got to go get the gunpowder. They got to get the gunpowder. These crazy, wild, bearded, because these were rednecks at the time, by the way. We think of Massachusetts maybe as the Bostonians and the Jameses and all them, but the Beecher family and all that. But at this time, man, these were some woolly buggers. If they lived in Northeast Georgia, they'd probably live up in Rabun County. Them some woolly buggers. I can tell you some stories about Rabun County. So anyway, the British get to Concord, and there's this bridge, and is it the North Bridge? Dadgummit, I just read all this stuff, and my brain is awful. You can look it up, though. There's a bridge, and the bridge had been rebuilt a couple times, and I think that this bridge had actually been built not long after Isaac Davis was born, and it's been rebuilt a number of times since then. But the British got to cross this bridge to get into Concord, or get to the other side of Concord, and find where they think the gunpowder is. So the militia gets called out, and Captain Davis's company shows up, obviously, and there's some other senior officers there to him, and everyone's kind of very, very concerned. Remember, the Civil War, listen to me, the Revolutionary War hadn't started yet. The idea of firing on the king's troops is, this isn't even just a capital offense. This is like, a spiritual death too. Oh my God, you fired on the king's anointed, or I'm sorry, God's anointed king's troops. And no one really knows what to do, but they know they've got to secure this bridge because I don't want anyone getting cross. Or maybe some troops had already gone across, and they were going to take the bridge to stop their retreat. I think that's what it was. And there were some British regulars there at the bridge who thought that the superiority of their F-15s and their nuclear missiles kept them secure. And so the militia's milling around, and a pivotal moment in American history happens. A pivotal moment in American history. The senior commanders don't really know what to do. Everyone's a little worried. Everyone's like, I've got a good life back home. Captain Davis, what do you think? Would you go take the bridge? Would you secure the bridge? Because we don't. And 30-year-old Captain Davis, with 4 kids at home and a successful business, with respect in his community, says, I have not a man who's afraid to do it. I have not a man who's afraid to go. And he forms up his company, and he marches them against the premier military in the world. Now, the men holding the old bridge were vastly outnumbered. They were horrifically arrogant. They thought for sure that these farmers were just nothing. And we are still 8 years from Yorktown, Jamestown. That town in Virginia. And so they fall back. But as they fall back, they take some shots. And in the first volley, because where's Captain Isaac Davis? He's at the front. In the first volley, they kill Captain Isaac Davis. He takes a bullet and dies right there. The second casualty of the Revolutionary War, the first officer killed, and the pinnacle of American masculinity bled out on that road that day. I have a number of pictures that Isaac took. I don't know how to incorporate them into the video, or I would. I will be posting them onto the community post. So you'll see those in the next couple of days. I won't get them up tonight before sundown. We're Sabbath keepers, so I'll get them up Sunday or maybe Saturday night. And I'm going to put those up. And I really appreciate Isaac doing that for us. He lives in the area. So what's the legacy of Captain Isaac Davis? Well, the United States of America is the legacy of Captain Davis. There might not be a United States of America if Captain Isaac Davis doesn't march on that bridge in Concord that day. No one else was ready to take the first step. And by the way, I'm not judging them because I haven't taken the first step either yet. But we haven't gone through the buildup that Isaac Davis had yet either, but still. So if that first shot in Concord doesn't get fired, and that battle at that bridge, my understanding was the first. There was something going on in North Carolina already, believe it or not. And you can actually make the argument that the first battle of the Revolutionary War had happened in North Carolina like 6 months prior or something. But I think everyone kind of realizes that could have just been looked at as a regional little, you know, if Captain Isaac Davis doesn't march on the old bridge, old North Bridge, damn it, I drive myself nuts. It's possible we don't have a revolution. It's possible we don't have a country. It's possible that you know, the British regulars find the powder. I think most of the powder had been moved at this point, but it's possible that they don't start that retreat, that disastrous retreat where all the militia got so energized and they come out and they're picking them off. That moment in our history propels us through the next 8 years, and we owe that, all of it. I mean, who knows? Someone else might have stepped up, but we don't know that, because Captain Isaac Davis did step up. But he didn't just. So here's the genius. What's really spectacular about this young man. So he didn't have a moment. He didn't just show up for a moment. Lots of us can be good in the moment, you know. He dedicated his life. He actually gave like precious resources from his life, from his family, from his business, and he dedicated it to this militia company, training them and outfitting them. How long does it take to make 100+ bayonets? It can't be easy. Adam, let us know at northpointaxe.com. He's a blacksmith. Let us know how long it takes to make a bayonet. See, those rifles they had back then, they weren't standardized. Eli Whitney hadn't invented standardization yet. Each one of those bayonets had to be fitted to the individual rifle of the man in the company. Guy's got 4 kids. I've had 4 kids, almost 4 times. I can tell you that when you're a father of 4 kids with a full-time job, and back then they worked, not like some of our full-time jobs. All right, when you're done with what you have to do to feed your family, you collapse. We all know this. We all come home and we'll... No, when his work was done, he outfitted a company of militiamen with bayonets, and he had the tactical knowledge to know that, oh, we need cartridge boxes. See, he knew the martial skills would probably the best. He was trained. His tactical and technical knowledge was in place, and then he had the fortitude to apply that tactical and technical knowledge, and to ask other men to come with him. If we had 5 Isaac Davises today, Captain Isaac Davis, we would not be in the position we're in. Seriously, if we had 5 men like Captain Isaac Davis in the country today, and I'm not one, I'm not trying to say I am, we would not be in the position we're in today. There is a more to his story. Of course, the federal government tries to co-opt this guy now. You've all actually seen a representation. If you've ever seen the National Guard emblem, or you've ever seen the statue, and they'll tell you it's the Minutemen statue of the guy standing with the rifle, and he actually has a plow next to him, and it's the National Guard seal now. That was modeled. That's Isaac Davis, and the sculptor is a guy named French. I don't think he was French. I think his name was French. He actually modeled the sculpture off of descendants of Isaac Davis, just to try to have it be some kind of touchstone. And we actually still have his plow today. It's in a museum. It's kind of important because it sort of symbolizes, the plow and the rifle, the dual, the whole militia thing, the citizen soldier. That's what the National Guard takes it to be now. So now they've taken Isaac Davis and his statue, the Minuteman statue, and made it to be about the National Guard, which was one of the most important and most underhanded power grabs the federal government has ever done. Was the Militia Act of 1916. You can trace the decline of America to many things. The Militia Act of 1916 is one of them. So there you go. You've all seen Captain Isaac Davis and just didn't know about it, or at least a representation of him. This is... Yeah, and here's why they don't teach about him, because this is the man we need. And they know that if there's Captain Isaac Davis is around, then tyranny cannot prosper. Oppression can't happen. the stealers, the destroyers, the thieves, the bandits, the thieves dressed up as officials, government officials. They know they can't stand up in the face of Captain Isaac Davis. No one could. The greatest military in the history of the world ended up folding in the face of the uprising that Captain Isaac Davis started. Boy, we talk about Congress and we talk about George Washington and the Declaration of Independence and, you know, yada, 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 yada. But what it came down to was a 30-year-old blacksmith at a town bridge when everyone else was milling around saying, what do we do? Oh no, oh no, oh no. And Captain Isaac Davis said, hell, I'm ready. And he was ready. He was ready. It wasn't just that, you know, lots of us there like, I'm ready, I'm ready. We're not ready. I'm one man. You're one man. We are not, with very few exceptions. I do know some of you who are the exception to this. We're not organized. We're not trained. We don't know who the man next door is who's going to help us resist the tyranny. Captain Isaac Davis was ready. He didn't just step up in the moment. You know, a lot of us would step up in the moment. We don't know who until the moment comes, but a lot of men would step up in the moment. But none of us have, very few of us, I'm sorry, I know some of you have. Very few of us have done the hard part of stepping up beforehand, of preparing beforehand, of organizing beforehand, of just doing the very, very scary, scary, scary work of saying, you know what? Yeah, I'm opposed to the powers that be. That's scary. That is scary. I got kids. It scares the shit out of me when I think about, you know, standing up to the federal government, the power, even the local government. Hell, you know, how many men with guns can the local law enforcement rain down on my head if they really wanted to? I don't know how many, but it'd be enough. That was scary. It was scary then. It's scary now. And Captain Isaac Davis overcame that fear. Men, this video is 27 minutes long, and I did not do Captain Isaac Davis justice. I want to thank Isaac, again, for bringing him to my attention. I am livid that I did not know who this man was prior to this. Livid. Absolutely livid. All of us should be horsewhipped for letting him disappear from our nation's history. If you did know who he is, let me know, comment. Maybe it's just a lack in my education. And there are a lot of those. But I'm pretty up on my American history for a layman. Anyway, man, there you go. We appreciate you. Hopefully we can all be more like Isaac Davis, Captain Isaac Davis. They actually have the stone they say that his head was resting on when he died. When he got shot, they laid him on the ground and his head was resting on a stone. And that stone is still around. You know, I don't know what the provenance of it is. It doesn't matter, because even if it's not the actual stone, you know, maybe if some guy 10 years later said, oh, yeah, that one, it's still a symbol. It's still a great symbol. It's got a plaque on it and everything. I'll put the picture that Isaac sent us up on you so you can look at it. Men, we live in perilous times. And we need men like Captain Isaac Davis. Hopefully we all can be that man. We appreciate you, men. Thank you.